Hey guys, tonight we step quietly onto a lonely stretch of Icelandic coastline. One of those places where the wind feels older than the land itself, where the rocks jut out like ribs, and where the ocean is already whispering warnings before you even get close enough to touch it. The sky above you is a dull, colorless gray, and the horizon, well, it has disappeared entirely, swallowed by a wall of fog that looks less like weather and more like something alive, deciding very politely to erase the world. You take one step toward the shoreline, and instantly the cold clamps onto your cheeks the way a grandparent might pinch them, but with far less affection. The smell of salt mixes with wet kelp, driftwood, and a faint trace of old fish that probably retired on this beach several months ago. Waves roll in slowly, muttering. The fog hangs low, thick enough that if you waved your hand in front of your face, you'd only see half of your fingers, and even those would look unsure of their life choices. You're about to take another step when a voice behind you grumbles. "Best not wander too far. The fog swallows quicker than the sea." You turn. The voice belongs to a fisherman, weathered, bearded, wrapped in layers of wool that looked like they could tell stories of their own. His eyes narrow at the fog, as if he's seen it misbehave before. And honestly, he probably has. Icelandic fog has a personality. One part clingy, one part mischievous, and one part, let's see if I can ruin someone's day today. Before we go any further into this cold, creeping silence, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And as always, tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is. I love seeing listeners checking in from everywhere, from warm tropical nights to freezing mountain cabins to tiny apartments with noisy neighbors pretending they aren't slamming cabinets at midnight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The fisherman shoulders a coil of rope and nods toward a small wooden boat resting crookedly on the sand. "Fog's coming faster than it should," he mutters. "If you're coming, come now." His tone suggests he did not invite you, but also that you're already part of the situation. You approach the boat. It's small enough to make you question the concept of seaworthy. One oar is slightly warped. The hull is patched in at least two places with what looks suspiciously like driftwood that wasn't even asked whether it wanted to be a boat. A seal lounging on a nearby rock gives you a look that clearly says, "Absolutely not, buddy." But the fisherman is already pushing the boat toward the ocean, boots sinking into wet sand. "Mind the waves," he says. "They're friendly until they're not." You help him shove the boat forward. The cold bites through your sleeves. The fog thickens around you like a heavy curtain being pulled shut. The world shrinks to a circle barely wider than your arms. You glance behind you, and the shore is already starting to blur. A mainstream historical fact might comfort you. Icelandic fishers often launched into fog whether they liked it or not, because weather, daylight, and survival rarely lined up politely. Many had no compass, no written maps, and no real guarantee they would row back to the same shore they left from. They navigated by instinct, by sound, by birds, by the scent of seaweed, by the direction of waves, and sometimes by pure, stubborn luck. You climb into the boat. The wood creaks beneath you in a way that implies it would prefer retirement. The fisherman settles in front, gripping the oars. "Stay close," he mutters. "Fog doesn't just hide things, it lies about them." You would laugh if he didn't look so serious. The moment he rows forward, the world dissolves. The beach disappears behind you. The sky disappears above you. The water below you becomes the same color as the air. It's like rowing across uncertainty itself. The fog curls around you, wet and heavy. It dampens sound until the world becomes a slow, rhythmic thunk, splash, thunk, splash of oars hitting the water. You try to look back, but the direction you think you came from looks exactly like every other direction. A quirky historical tidbit floats into your thoughts. Some Icelanders swore that thick fog could move the sea under your boat. Not literally, of course, but when sight disappeared, currents could shift you while your brain insisted you were still rowing straight. You could end up miles off course without realizing it. You gripped the side of the boat a little tighter. The fisherman rows slowly but steadily, listening more than he watches. "Hear that?" he asks suddenly. You hear nothing. "That's the problem," he mutters. He lifts one oar and lets it rest. The boat drifts ever so slightly, turning on currents you can't see. The fog settles heavier, like a wool blanket soaked in ice water. Somewhere far away, or maybe disturbingly close, a gull calls. One sharp cry, then silence. The fisherman nods. "Lands that way," he whispers, pointing toward a gray shape that may or may not be solid. You squint, but the fog gives you nothing. A scholarly debate sneaks in, one historians still argue about. Did medieval Icelanders really use bird calls to navigate? Some say yes, absolutely. Others argue it's poetic exaggeration. Standing here, you're inclined to believe anything that helps you feel less lost. The fisherman dips the oar again. The boat creaks. The fog thickens. Your breath becomes a little louder in your ears. You're officially far from shore now, far from safety, far from anything except the small circle of existence carved out by one boat, one fisherman, and your rising sense that maybe you should have stayed on land and developed a sudden, passionate interest in accounting instead. But the fisherman doesn't seem rattled. Not yet. He leans into the next row, sending ripples into the quiet gray. "Fog's playing tricks," he mutters. "Best keep your courage close." You would like to, but courage doesn't feel as warm as a fur cloak right now. The boat glides deeper into the mist. The world shrinks tighter, and somewhere behind you, shore, warmth, safety vanishes.
You're not sure how long you've been drifting through this fog. Minutes, hours, a lifetime. Because time behaves strangely when you can't see more than a few arm lengths in any direction. Everything becomes measured in breaths, in the dip of an oar, in the soft slap of water against the hull. The fog muffles the world so much that even your heartbeat feels too loud. like it might echo out into the gray and startle whatever is listening. The fisherman rows with slow, deliberate strokes, the kind of rhythm only earned by years of doing the same thing in the same unforgiving water. His shoulders rise and fall, wrapped in thick wool that's growing darker as droplets cling to the fibers. You can see his breath now, pale white clouds in the cold air, rising and disappearing into the fog above. He doesn't look back at you, but he does mutter occasionally, as if he's arguing with the fog itself. "This mist," he says under his breath, "moves like a thief, takes things you weren't ready to lose." You decide not to ask if he means people. The sea is calm, but not comfortably calm. Too flat, too soft, like a surface waiting for the right moment to shift. The boat feels small, fragile. Even the wood seems to exhale nervously as the fisherman rows deeper. A slick sound rises now and then, little currents brushing the sides, as if something beneath is curious. You inhale through your nose, and the air tastes like salt and cold metal. A cold droplet slides down your collar. You shiver. The fisherman pauses for a moment, lifting one oar and listening. His eyes narrow. "We've lost the sound of the shore," he murmurs. "Means we've gone farther than I'd hoped." Your eyebrows lift. "We're lost?" He snorts lightly, shaking his head. "Not lost, just not found yet." Right. Perfectly reassuring. A mainstream historical fact drifts through your thoughts, perhaps to ground you in something comforting. Fishermen in medieval Iceland often had to navigate without visual cues, relying instead on sensory clues. Wave direction, wind temperature, and even how certain fish behaved under the boat. It was a world shaped long before compasses reached this island, a world where every sense mattered. But right now, your senses feel like they're betraying you. The fog is too thick to see, too soft to hear through, too damp to breathe comfortably. You shift your weight slightly, trying not to look like someone who regrets all life choices that led to sitting in a small wooden boat with questionable buoyancy. The fisherman doesn't miss your movement. "Sit steady," he says gently, not unkindly. Fog makes the sea feel flatter than it is. "What does that mean?" you ask. He glances at you. "Means the waves will remind you soon." Excellent. He dips the oar again, pulling the boat forward. You notice his hands, thick, calloused, stiff with the cold. Each knuckle looks like a knot of driftwood. These are hands that have tied nets in storms, butchered fish on icy rock, and rowed across pitch-black seas with only stars to guide him. Except tonight, there are no stars, just the gray. The fog presses close, so close it feels physical. It threatens to wrap around your shoulders like a too friendly stranger. You hear a faint splash somewhere behind you, or is it ahead, or underneath? The fisherman stiffens slightly, listening. "What was that?" "Water," he says. "Yes, thank you," you think. Very helpful. But then he adds, "Deep, slow, not wind. Something large moving. Maybe a whale." "Right, whale,"
completely normal. A fringe historical tidbit pops up. Something half remembered, half warning. Some Icelandic folk tales described foggy seas as the domain of giant creatures who rose silently beneath boats, curious about the shapes drifting above. Whether these were whales, seals, or the products of anxious imaginations is something historians still argue about. The boat rocks gently, too gently. The fisherman grasps the oars tighter. Keep your feet planted, the sea's shifting. Indeed, you feel it, a subtle pull, like the ocean inhaling. The boat turns slightly, just enough that you notice the fog ahead seems thicker, darker. Hard to tell where your eyes stop and the mist begins. A lone bird cry cuts through the silence, faint, warped by distance and moisture. The fisherman lifts his chin. "Good," he says softly. "Birds don't call if land is too far, but they do cry when something disturbs them." Your head snaps around. "Something?" He shrugs. "Current? A wave? A shadow? A seal? Or something bigger?" You take a slow breath and decide not to think about the bigger option. The fisherman changes the way he rows now. Shorter strokes, testing strokes, feeling the water. "There's a pull westward," he murmurs. "We don't want westward. That takes us toward the outer sea." You look into the fog. It looks back, unbothered. He shifts his weight, listens again, and suddenly taps the side of the boat twice. Do you hear that? You do. A faint, hollow thump, not from the boat, but from the water itself. "That's the echo of your oar," he explains. "Means there's something to the side. A rock maybe, or a cliff. Fog eats sight, but it can't steal sound." He dips the oar again, listens, adjusts, rows. The rhythm feels like a lullaby and a warning at once. You glance over your shoulder into the endless mist. The silence feels too big, too heavy, too empty. The world feels gone. The only thing anchoring you is the creak of the boat and the fisherman breathing steadily in front of you. Then you hear it, a dull, distant rumbling, low, trembling. Your eyes widen. What is that? "Wave hitting cliff," the fisherman says calmly. "Means land's not far." He pauses. His voice drops lower, almost reverent. Or it's something pretending to be land. You whip your head around. "Pretending?" He chuckles softly. "Fog plays tricks, makes flat water sound like mountains, or mountains sound like nothing at all." Another scholarly debate slides in as if summoned. Some medieval sailors swore fog could bend sound, making cliffs seem farther or nearer than they truly were. Meteorologists today still argue whether temperature layers or shifting moisture pockets created the illusion. But in this moment, you don't care about scholarly debates. You just want to know whether that rumbling means safety or disaster. The fisherman breathes out slowly. We keep rowing. Quiet now. The sea listens in fog. Something about the way he says that makes you sit straighter, gripping the sides of the boat with new respect. Fog drips from your hair, your clothes cling to you, the cold sinks deeper. And the fisherman rows on, one stroke, then another, into a shifting world where land and sea and sky
into one endless gray breath. Whatever waits out there is still hidden, but you're going toward it now.
You blink hard, trying to shake the sting from your eyes, but the fog presses in, like damp wool pulled over your face. Breathing feels different here, slower, heavier, like the air has weight to it. The sea under your boat is calm in that suspicious way that makes you think it's plotting something. It swells gently, almost thoughtfully, as if considering whether to help you or nudge you toward an embarrassing obituary. Your hands tighten around the oars. They're slick with mist now, and each stroke makes a soft skirp sound against the wooden locks. The world is shrinking again, not in a dramatic gods descend from the sky sense, but in a very practical visibility is now approximately 3 inches away. You pull your cloak tighter, though all it really does is turn cold water into cold fabric. Somewhere behind you, the direction you think is home, you hear a seal barking. Or maybe it's a man yelling, or maybe it's your imagination running stress laps. It's hard to tell where things are anymore. You shift in your seat and listen. That's the main strategy now. Like a medieval radar system powered by anxiety. The ocean murmurs beneath the wood. The fog whispers along the edges of your hood, and somewhere to your left, something splashes. Not big enough to panic about, but definitely big enough to keep your heart rate interesting. A mainstream historical fact drifts into your thoughts, probably because panic and education tend to mix in weird ways. Early Icelandic fishermen often rowed out alone or in pairs, trusting experience, instinct, and a handful of landmarks to get home. But fog like this? Fog erased everything. The sea became a blank page. Scholars still argue whether these fishers had early mental maps or whether everyone was just winging it every time they left shore and hoping the gods were amused that day. Your foot bumps against something near the bottom of the boat. You lean down, feeling around blindly until your fingers graze a small wooden box, your bait container, and beside it something else, a polished stone, smooth as river ice. You keep it in the boat for luck, though you're not sure where the idea came from. Someone in the village probably told you once that stones with holes, or stones worn smooth by rivers, or stones that looked sort of like a fish, were lucky. At this point, you're ready to believe in any geological deity that wants to help. You give the stone a quick squeeze. It feels grounding, solid. Everything else around you is soft edges and shifting air. Rowing becomes rhythm. Your arms burn a little, but not painfully, more like they're reminding you that you've been doing this all day. You rock with the boat, listening for clues. A gull cries somewhere ahead, muffled by fog, but distinct. Gulls don't wander too far from land, right? Right. Maybe. Probably. A quirky tidbit comes to mind. Some medieval Icelandic fishermen swore that gulls were secret navigators, able to sense the shore even through storms. Others said gulls were liars and tricksters that would lead you straight into cliffs just for fun. No consensus. Again, historians still argue. You angle the boat toward the sound anyway, because your options are limited, and following a possibly deceitful bird seems better than sitting still until hypothermia writes its own autobiography. The fog shifts suddenly, just a little, like a curtain being nudged by an unseen hand. You sit up straighter. Shapes appear. Not clear shapes, not friendly ones, but darker than fog patches hovering in the mist. You freeze. Your breath catches in your throat. Your fingers grip the oars like they're your last connection to the human world. You squint into the pale void. Slowly, ever so slowly, the shapes stretch, lean, and ripple. Your first terrified thought: people! Tall, thin figures standing in the water, watching you, waiting. Then with another breath, another slow shift of the fog, you see it. The tall, dark forms are just volcanic rock stacks jutting out of the sea, coated in algae and mist. Not spirits, not ancient gods, just geology being dramatic again. You exhale all at once. The tension unwinds from your shoulders like someone cut a rope. You mutter something under your breath, nothing profane, just the medieval equivalent of, "Really? Seriously?" The sea does not apologize. You adjust your course, careful now. The rock stacks loom, some as tall as houses, others thin as spear tips. They're silent, unmoving, and somehow more intimidating than ghosts ever could be. Things made by nature rarely feel the need to explain themselves. Another stroke. Another. The boat glides forward. The fog thickens again behind you, swallowing the rocks until they vanish like a dream. Your heart steadies. Your breathing slows. But the fog still holds you like a patient hand, guiding you into a deeper, quieter part of the sea, somewhere even the gulls hesitate. You wipe your forehead with the back of your hand, though it does nothing to stop the mist from settling again. The cold creeps into your sleeves, your boots, your bones. The oars feel heavier now, though maybe that's just your imagination responding to the uncertainty. Still, you keep rowing, because what else is there? Ahead, faint and strange, you hear something new. A low rumble, like distant waves breaking, like wind trapped in a cave, or something else. You lean forward, trying to hear it better. Your ears strain. Your breath holds itself without you asking. The fog swirls lazily, as if it knows something you don't, and is thinking about whether to tell you. The sound grows louder, and the sea beneath you deepens into a darker shade of gray. Something lies ahead. Something big. Something carved by the island long before people learned to carve their own stories. You row toward it because you have no choice. And the fog, ancient and indifferent, closes gently behind you.
The rumble grows, low and steady, like the earth is humming through the sea. You pause mid-stroke, letting the faint current pull your boat a few finger widths forward. The sound vibrates through the wood beneath your feet, a deep tremor you feel more than you hear. You sit perfectly still, listening again, because sometimes your ears don't catch what your bones catch first. The fog thins just enough to show a darker patch ahead. Not a shape, not yet, more like the suggestion of one. A hint, a shadow of a shadow. Your fingers tighten on the oars, your breath
forms thin clouds in front of your face, drifting into the mist as if joining the chorus of lost wanderers. The rumble doesn't fade. It pulses, slow, heavy, unconcerned. You try to convince yourself it's just waves breaking against cliffs, a normal phenomenon, not terrifying, not mysterious, just an innocent geological feature doing its job. But the timing is wrong, the intervals too steady, the hum too clean. A mainstream historical fact slips into your mind at the worst possible moment because that's how your brain likes to cope. Ancient Icelandic coastlines were riddled with sea caves, some so deep and narrow that wind forced inside them created booming, echoing roars. Fishermen used to call them breathing cliffs. Some believed the cliffs swallowed storms and exhaled warnings. And the fun part? Historians still argue whether those stories were metaphor or based on cliffs that really did echo like living things. You swallow hard. The fog begins to shift again, peeling slowly apart like a curtain being dragged open by tired hands. Light doesn't pour in because, well, Iceland, but visibility thickens into something usable. And there it is. A massive sea arch of black volcanic rock towers before you, rising straight out of the water like a gate carved for giants. Its opening is tall as a longhouse, framed by jagged edges dripping with moisture. Mist curls in and out of the archway like breath. A cold gust slips through, carrying the echo you heard. The cliffs are literally breathing. Fantastic, you mutter. Nature with a sense of drama. Your voice sounds small here, like it's trespassing. You drift a little closer. The arch looms overhead, dark and ancient, its surface ridged with the slow violence of lava that cooled centuries before you were born. Strands of seaweed cling to the lower edges. Barnacles crust along the sides like stubborn old men refusing to move. And inside the arch, only blackness. Not just absence of light blackness, but textured blackness, layered blackness, the kind that feels like it might swallow your boat whole if it were in a particularly hungry mood. Your boat tilts slightly as a small swell lifts it, a reminder that you are still on water and still always at its mercy. You steady yourself, pressing your boot against the bench for balance. A gull suddenly bursts from the top of the arch, flapping wildly, screaming its opinion of the world. You nearly drop an oar. The boat wobbles dangerously. You whisper a quick, whispered prayer of the please no capsizing variety. Once your pulse stops attempting acrobatics, you take another breath. The fog curls around the edges of the arch, giving the whole formation an eerie halo. The sound deepens as wind funnels through the cavern behind it. You stare into that darkness, and then you see it. A flicker of movement. Not large, not threatening, just something. A shape crossing in front of the faint gray behind the arch, like a distant lantern being carried away, then vanishing. It's gone in a blink, so fast you're not sure it was real. Maybe it was a gull, or a fish, or your brain politely malfunctioning under stress. A quirky tidbit crosses your mind. Some ancient Icelanders believed Landvættir, the local guardian spirits, appeared in fog as shifting forms, sometimes animals, sometimes human-like figures, sometimes no more than a glimmer. Their moods, according to folklore, ranged anywhere between mildly helpful and not today human. You're not sure which category you just encountered. You grip the oars again. There's no avoiding the arch. The waters around you slope subtly inward, drawn toward the cavern's opening by currents you can't see, but definitely feel. The pull is gentle, not dangerous yet, but insistent. The sea wants you to go forward. You try rowing backward. It doesn't work. The current laughs quietly at your attempt. "Great," you mumble. "Fantastic. Wonderful. Being kidnapped by the ocean. Again." You steer the boat as best you can, angling it to avoid the sharpest rocks beneath the surface. The arch grows larger above you until it blots out the sky entirely, leaving only the cold light of fog filtering through the gap. As you pass under it, the air changes, cooler, damp, echoing. The hum deepens. As wind funnels through the cavern behind it, every stroke of the oars sounds amplified, bouncing off the cavern walls. A drip falls onto your hood from the ceiling, then another, then 10 more. The rock above you is weeping. The boat glides deeper into the dimness, and then silence. The wind stops. The echoes soften. The world holds its breath. You feel suddenly impossibly small. The fog behind you closes, blocking the view of where you came from. The darkness ahead waits, calm, patient, ancient. You tighten your grip. You're going in.
You inhale slowly, letting the cold dampness settle into your lungs, like a reminder that you're still very much alive, and very much somewhere you probably shouldn't be. The cavern walls press inward, towering on either side, as if carved by a giant's fingers. The air is so still now that even the gentle ripple of your oars sounds too loud, like you're scraping them across a cathedral floor. You ease your strokes, softer, quieter, trying not to disturb whatever rules govern this place. The darkness ahead feels thicker than the fog behind you, as if light hesitated to enter, got cold feet, and turned around. Your eyes strain, hunting for contrast, shape, anything familiar. But everything in front of you melts together into one long shadow. You shift in your seat again, the wood creaking under your weight. The cavern answers with a long, deep echo that rolls through the space like a bored giant exhaling. Your shoulders stiffen. Even the sea feels quieter now, as if it's tiptoeing. Then, you notice something. A faint glow. Barely there. Soft, flickering, warm. You blink hard. Once, twice. The glow doesn't vanish. It pulses gently, like a firefly relaxing inside a cavern the size of a king's hall. You lean forward, squinting through the darkness. The glow takes shape. It stretches. It sways. It ripples. A patch of bioluminescent algae drifts near the surface, shimmering turquoise and green like a spilled treasure chest of living stars. The water around your boat lights up suddenly, the globe rushing against the hull in slow swirling motions, turning the dark cavern into a soft cosmic cradle. You let out a breath you didn't realize you'd been holding. A mainstream historical fact drifts into your thoughts. Northern seas, especially around Iceland, have long been known for bioluminescence, tiny organisms that glow when disturbed. Sailors once believed them to be spirits, guiding or warning crews depending on their color and brightness. Some sagas describe them as sea lanterns, gifts from the deep.
And of course, historians still argue whether those descriptions are poetic exaggerations or faithful recordings of natural phenomena. The glow brightens as your boat slides through it, and for a moment your fear fades, replaced by awe. The cavern walls reflect the faint light, revealing their texture: black basalt streaked with mineral veins, smooth in some places, jagged in others. Water drips in steady droplets from the ceiling, each one briefly glowing as it falls into the illuminated pool. A soft splash startles you, a fish darting near the surface, leaving bright trails like a tiny comet. You follow its movement until the light fades again, swallowed by deeper shadows. Then, from somewhere ahead, comes a new sound. Not the rumble, not the echo. Something else. A low, rhythmic thuck, thuck, thuck. You freeze. It's unmistakably human, or at least human adjacent. Someone, or something, is striking wood against stone. Your mind cycles through possibilities: a lost fisherman like you, a hermit, a driftwood collecting troll, a seal slapping a log. You have no idea, and unfortunately medieval Icelandic survival guides are not included in this boat. Your hands shake slightly as you rest the oars across your lap. You tilt your head, listening. The sound continues, steady, measured, intentional. A figure materializes in the faint glow, far ahead near a ledge where the cavern floor rises above the sea. At first, it looks like part of the rock, but then it moves, slowly, deliberately. You're suddenly aware of how small your boat is, how thin the wood is, how sharp the rocks below are. You think about rowing backward, but a gentle current nudges you forward again, like an invisible hand placed firmly against your back. The figure raises something, long, thin, straight. A staff. You grip the side of the boat. Another quirky tidbit surfaces in your mind. Icelandic folklore is full of hermits, or utlagi, exiled men who lived far from farms, hiding in sea caves, living on fish, driftwood, and stubbornness. Some were criminals, some were monks, some were rumored to have gone mad listening to the roar of the sea. You are very much hoping this one is the monk type. The glow brightens again as you drift closer. The figure steps towards the water's edge. He appears through the dim light, an older man with a tangled beard, shoulders wrapped in a heavy cloak that drips seawater. His eyes are small, sharp, reflective, like someone used to watching darkness instead of daylight. His staff taps the stone again, thuck, like he's testing the cave's heartbeat. He doesn't speak. Neither do you. Your heartbeat thunders in your ears. The old man lifts the staff slightly, its tip glowing faintly with the reflection of the waterlight. Then he points it towards you, not threateningly, not accusingly, more like someone pointing out that you've accidentally walked into a room you weren't supposed to find. His voice cracks through the cold air, low and rough. "You should not be here." Your mouth grinds dry. "I'm lost?" He considers this. The light flickers across his face. His wrinkles deepen, shaped by years of wind and salt. "Everyone who enters this place believes the same," he says softly. You swallow hard. "Can you help me get home?" The man's expression shifts, something between sympathy and warning. He steps back into the shadows, leaving only the faint outline of his staff. "The fog does not release those who do not listen," he murmurs. Row when it breathes in. Rest when it breathes out. You blink. What does that... He's gone. Vanished. So cleanly, you'd swear he melted into the cavern wall. You sit frozen, gripping the oars, the cavern's heartbeat echoing in your bones. The glow dims. The current shifts. You finally understand. You need to listen to the fog.
You sit there for a long moment, long enough that the cavern's darkness feels like it's leaning in to see what you'll do next. The old man's words echo in your head, circling like ravens. Row when it breathes in. Rest when it breathes out. You replay them over and over, as if the repetition will unlock a meaning you missed the first time. The fog. Breathing. You grip the oars again, fingers slightly numb from cold and nerves. You look around, trying to feel the cavern instead of just seeing it. The light from the bioluminescent water fades further, leaving only a faint haze. The silence deepens until it presses on your ears like two cold hands. You take a breath, another, slow, measured. And then you notice it. Not sound, not movement. Air. A soft pull against your cheeks. A whisper of wind moving deeper into the cave. The faintest inward draft. The cave is inhaling. You don't wait to question it. You row. Smooth, steady strokes. The water moves with you, as if you finally stepped into the rhythm it's been hinting at since you entered this place. Your boat glides through the darkness in near silence, guided by the subtle draw of the breathing current. Ahead of you, the cavern begins to widen. The ceiling arches higher. The echoes spread out, softer, more distant. And for the first time since the fog swallowed the world, you feel something that might be hope. You row until the air shifts again, this time exhaling. A slow outward push of wind brushes your face with damp cold. You stop instantly, remembering the old man's warning. The boat drifts in place, gently bobbing on a small swell. Stop when it breathes out. Move when it breathes in. You feel ridiculous, and yet the strategy works. The cavern's natural wind cycle, created by distant openings and shifting pressures, seems to guide the tide in waves of invisible breath. You fall into the strange pattern like it's some ancient chant you never learned but somehow recognize. A quirky tidbit flashes in your thoughts. Some medieval Icelanders carved runes or symbols in caves as protective charms before heading to sea. Others once believed sea caves were gateways to hidden worlds, or Alfheims, where spirits dwelt. People came to leave offerings, or to ask for luck, or to whisper their secrets where the cliffs might keep them safe. You wonder which type this was. A sudden splash nearby snaps your attention back to the water. You jerk the oars to steady the boat. The glow returns briefly. Another flicker of turquoise swirling beneath the surface, disappearing just as quickly. The cave inhales again. You move forward. Little by little, the darkness thins. The air shifts from cold to merely cool. The distant roar of the sea starts to filter in, not the cavern's heartbeat now, but the wide-open ocean calling from somewhere ahead. And then, a thin sliver of light appears. Pale, gray, trembling like the edge of dawn filtered through wet wool. You row toward it. With each breath of the cave, the light grows broader, sharper, more defined. The walls become visible again, rough and jagged, dripping points like stone teeth.
but comforting somehow, because they mean you're nearing the end. You push through the final exhale and stop. The boat rocks gently between two huge pillars of basalt that mark the cavern's mouth like guardians. Beyond them lies open water, blurred by a soft cloud of fog, thinner now than before. You can almost see the horizon. Almost. You wait for the next inhale. When it comes, you row hard, breaking free of the cavern's shadow entirely. The world outside is still fogged, but the water is brighter. The sky above the mist glows faintly, like sunlight fighting its way through. The air is clearer here, smelling of salt and cold wind instead of stone. You look back once, and for a brief moment, just a breath, you see something move deep within the cave. A flicker of light, a silhouette, a tall figure leaning on a staff. You blink. It's gone. You face forward again, gripping the oars with new determination. The fog may not be finished with you, but now you're listening. And somewhere out there, buried in the gray, is home.
You row forward into the open water, and the cavern behind you slowly shrinks into the fog, like a memory pulling its own cloak around itself. The air feels different now, lighter, brisker, yet oddly still. You take a long breath, feeling your lungs expand with something that might be relief or just the cold trying to settle deeper into your ribs. Either way, you're out. But you're not safe. The fog ahead moves like nothing natural, smooth, rolling, pulsing in faint waves. It reminds you of a giant creature breathing beneath a blanket, each inhale lifting the mist, each exhale letting it settle again. The old man's instructions echo in your mind. Row when it breathes in, rest when it breathes out. Right. You can do that. You hold perfectly still, watching the fog, waiting, listening with every sense you have. The water laps gently against the sides of the boat, a soft rhythm that almost calms you. Almost. Then you feel it, a faint breeze pulling air inward. The fog inhales. You row. Long strokes, smooth, quiet, sliding forward like you're trying not to wake something sleeping under the water's surface. The mist parts just enough for you to see a few meters ahead. Thin shapes, vague outlines, nothing definite. Still better than the cavern. You row until the air shifts again. The fog exhales. You stop instantly, letting the boat drift. The mist settles thicker around you, curling around your arms and neck like cold fingers. Everything turns softer again, blurred at the edges. It's like rowing through a dream you didn't agree to enter. A mainstream historical fact drifts through your mind, somehow both comforting and unsettling. Ancient Icelandic fishers relied heavily on sensory cues other than sight: smell, sound, water texture, wind direction. Fog was common, and navigating through it was a literal test of survival. Some crews even believed fog was alive, a presence meant to challenge or punish those who took the sea for granted. And naturally, historians still argue whether that belief was superstition or simply metaphor born from fear. Your hand rests lightly on the oars as you wait for the fog's next breath. Minutes pass. A distant sound brushes your ears, a rhythmic splash, slow and deliberate. Oars. Someone else is out here. Or something else. You stiffen, heart thumping against your ribs like it's trying to send a message in Morse code. You peer into the mist, blinking against the cold stinging your eyes. For a moment, just a heartbeat, you see a silhouette.
longboat-shaped, narrow, with a single figure sitting upright, facing you. But before your brain can panic properly, the fog thickens and swallows the shape whole. You whisper, "Please be a fisherman. Please." No response. The fog inhales. You row again. Forward. Always forward. Your oar strokes become rhythmic, thoughtless. The cold settles across your shoulders like a familiar burden. The act of moving becomes something close to meditation, repetitive, grounding, even soothing if you ignore the existential dread. The fog ahead dims suddenly, like a cloud sliding across an invisible moon. For a moment, you fear the cavern is returning, doubling back to swallow you again. But no, this darkness feels different, open, expansive. A deeper fog bank. You push into it cautiously, the air turning colder, sharper, slicing at your cheeks like thin knives. Your breath fogs immediately, dissolving into the gray. You shiver, pulling your cloak tighter, though it does almost nothing. Then you hear it again. A splash. Loud. Close. Your grip tightens on the oars. Something moves beneath the boat, just a brush, a ripple, but enough to lift the hull a fraction. You jolt back, nearly tipping sideways. You steady yourself, whispering, "Not a whale, please not a whale." A quirky historical tidbit surfaces. Medieval Icelanders had mixed feelings about whales. They were valuable when beached, meat, oil, bone, but dangerous when alive. Some believed certain whales were cursed or bewitched, capable of luring boats astray. The sagas describe Havgufa, a legendary sea creature so massive that sailors mistook it for an island. Whether mythical or exaggerated, historians still argue. You are not emotionally prepared to test either theory right now. You breathe, slow and shaky. Again the sound. Splash. Glide. Brush. You swallow hard. "All right," you whisper to the sea. "I get it. You have opinions." The fog shifts ahead, brightening slightly. Not much, but enough that you can distinguish water from air again. A subtle silvery glow emerges, like distant daylight filtered through wet wool. You row harder this time, not waiting for the fog's breath, just trying to get away from whatever decided to do synchronized swimming beneath you. And then, just as your arms start to tremble, you break through. The thick fog loosens its grip all at once, thinning into a soft veil. The water brightens. The sky above becomes a pale gray dome, visible at last. You gasp, sucking in air that tastes fresher, sharper, real. But your relief freezes in your chest. Because now, in the clearer light, you see it. An object floating far ahead. Dark. Still. Half submerged. You angle your boat toward it cautiously. When you get close enough, the outline becomes painfully clear. A broken wooden plank, part of a boat, split cleanly in half. Edges jagged, splintered outward. You reach out and pull it toward you. The wood is soaked, heavy, the grain familiar, oak, the kind used by Icelandic rowboats. You run your fingers over the broken edge. Something tore it. Not rocks, not waves. Something alive. You look up quickly, scanning the horizon, suddenly aware of how small and alone you are in this gray world. Your heart pounds, and for the first time since this journey started, the fog, feels less like a challenge and more like a warning.
You hold the broken plank in your hands for a long moment, letting the cold water drip down your wrist and into your sleeve. The chill runs straight to your elbow, but you barely feel it. Your mind is too loud, too busy connecting dots you wish it wouldn't. You examine the splintered wood again. The break is jagged, yes, but not sharp the way rocks would make it. Not sanded smooth the way time would erode it. Something yanked it apart, hard, fast. You turn the plank slowly, watching how the light catches on the torn fibers. Your stomach sinks. Nope, you whisper. Absolutely not. Don't love that. A distant gull cries overhead, startling you back into the moment. You glance up. The sky is still a heavy wool blanket of gray, but at least it's visible now. A small blessing after the cavern's oppressive darkness. You toss the plank gently back into the sea and grip your oars again, though your hands tremble a little. You row forward. Not fast, not slow, just steady. Because the water ahead is suddenly too quiet. A mainstream historical fact steadies your thoughts. Medieval Icelandic fishers often encountered broken boats drifting at sea. Sometimes it meant storms, sometimes collisions, and sometimes, though they didn't say it aloud, it meant something large had swum too close. Icelandic waters have always been home to creatures deep enough to have legends written about them. And scholars still argue whether those legends are metaphors or cautionary eyewitness accounts. You try to shake the unease, focusing instead on the rhythmic plunk swish of your oars. The boat glides on, cutting through the thinning fog. The horizon begins to form, not sharp, not crisp, but present, a faint promise of direction. Then you notice the movement. A ripple, long, deliberate. You freeze. The water ahead bulges slightly, like a submerged shape gliding beneath the surface. Not a wave, not a current. Something self-propelled, something purposeful. You grip the oars tighter. Your breath quickens. The creature, if it is a creature, doesn't break the surface. Just glides in a long arc, faint enough to deny, but real enough to terrify. You whisper to the sea, "Just passing through, okay? I'm not even interesting." The ripple disappears. Your shoulders loosen a fraction. You begin rowing again, more urgently now, as if increasing distance can undo whatever you just saw. The water slowly returns to its earlier calm. The fog continues thinning. You recognize the subtle shift in color that means the open ocean is giving way to coastal waters. And then, thunk. Your oar hits something solid. You jolt back so fast you nearly fall off the bench. You yank the oar up, heart hammering, expecting teeth marks or something slimy. It's a rope. A thick, tar-darkened rope floating on the surface, tugging gently with the tide. You lean closer, lifting it with both hands. It's rough, frayed in places, but intact enough to mean something important. People were here. Recently. You follow the rope with your eyes. It stretches across the water toward a faint, dark silhouette ahead. Something small, compact, bobbing gently. A buoy? A fishing basket? A net float? You row toward it cautiously. The shape slowly becomes clearer. A small wooden fish trap, Icelandic style, woven from stakes and driftwood, partially submerged but in good condition. You reach out and tap its side. It's heavy with catch.
Someone set this trap. Someone who hasn't returned to retrieve it. The fog curls around you again, as if listening. Another quirky tidbit bubbles up. Medieval Icelandic fishers often set fish traps close to shore, marking them with ropes to avoid losing them in storms. If a fisherman didn't return by morning, neighbors or family would row out to check trap markers first, hoping for a sign. You swallow hard. Whoever placed this never made it back. You look around, suddenly expecting another plank, another broken rope, more clues, more warnings. But the sea gives you nothing, just silence and gray. You let the trap drift away and steady your breath. You tell yourself it's not your business. You tell yourself your only job is getting home. Your heart disagrees, picking up its pace again. You row on. The fog thins a little more, giving you a wider circle of visibility, still small, but comforting in a less likely to get eaten way. The air smells different too, cleaner, sharper, touched with the faint scent of land, wet grass, cold soil, maybe even distant smoke. Your pulse lifts. Land is close. But the fog swirls again ahead of you in a strange funneling motion, like a column turning slowly in place, not rising, not falling, spinning. You stop rowing. The fog column twists once, twice, then breaks apart, revealing something faint on the horizon. A dark shape, low, long, unmoving. You squint. A ridge? A coastline? A cliff? The mist shifts again, and your heart jumps. It's a longhouse. Not yours. Not familiar. A lone structure, perched near the water's edge, barely visible through the haze. Its turf roof blends into the hillside, its timber bones dark against the gray world. Smoke, thin and hesitant, trickles from a small vent. Someone is there. Someone living. You stare, breath caught halfway in your throat. Hope trickles in, like warmth returning to cold hands. But then something else stirs inside you, a strange, uneasy tug, because the longhouse looks old, weathered, abandoned but not, as if someone who built it hasn't stepped outside in a very, very long time. You grip the oars again, and you row toward it anyway, because right now, even mystery feels safer than the open sea.
You row toward the distant longhouse, each stroke sending your boat gliding over water that has become suspiciously calm, too calm. The fog has thinned enough now that you can see the full shape of the structure perched on the shore. Long, low, and half buried into the earth, like it was built to hide rather than shelter. The turf roof slopes unevenly, sagging in places, but still intact. A faint trail of smoke escapes through a small hole near the peak, drifting upward in a thin, wavering line that dissolves quickly into the fog. It's not the confident smoke of a lively home. It's hesitant, weak, like a fire that hasn't been fed properly in days. You slow your rowing, letting the current push you gently toward the shore. The boat's bow kisses the shoreline with a soft scrape. You grip the edge of the boat, steadying yourself as you step into the shallows. Cold water seeps instantly into your boots, of course, but you keep moving. Your legs feel stiff, half numb from rowing and half numb from fear pretending to be courage. You trudge onto the pebbled shore. The wind here is faint, almost reverent, brushing your cheek like a hand unsure if it has permission to touch you. You turn back briefly, noting how the fog hangs over the ocean like a living curtain, ready to close the moment you look away. Great. No escape route anxiety here at all. You face the long house again. The doorway is narrow, dark, the kind of dark that has depth to it. As you approach, something shifts near your feet, a crunch. You look down. Old shells, broken and scattered across the ground. No pattern, no order, just remnants of meals long past. A sign of habitation, but not recent. You reach the door. It's slightly open. A mainstream historical fact slips into your mind. Many medieval Icelandic longhouses left their doors ajar during winter to prevent smoke from collecting and snow from sealing the entrance shut. Visitors often entered without knocking. Privacy wasn't exactly a medieval priority. Still, the crack in the door now feels like an invitation you're not sure you want to accept. You place your hand on the wood. It's cold, damp, rough. You push gently. The door opens with a soft groan like it hasn't been moved in a long time. Inside, darkness. Not total darkness. There's a faint orange glow from deeper within, probably the same fire producing that thin ribbon of smoke. But the main room is swallowed in shadow. You step inside cautiously. Your boots crunch on dry rushes scattered across the floor. The air smells heavy, smoke, damp wool, old earth, and something else. Something metallic. Something like time. The door nudges shut behind you under its own weight. You freeze. Then a soft crackle from the hearth reassures you that at least something inside here is alive. You walk deeper into the longhouse, eyes adjusting slowly. The interior is larger than you expected, stretched long like a sleeping animal curled into the hillside. Wooden beams arch overhead, darkened by decades of smoke. The walls are lined with turf blocks, thick and muffled, swallowing sound. And then you see it, a figure lying near the hearth. You stop so abruptly your boots skid slightly on the floor. A person, wrapped in heavy woolens, curled on a low wooden platform. The glow from the coals flickers across their face, revealing a pale cheek, closed eyes, and lips that look far too still. You whisper, "Hello?" No response. You inch closer. The figure doesn't move, doesn't breathe, or at least you can't tell if they do. Their skin is ashen, their hair tucked beneath a wool cap, their hands folded on their chest like someone arranged them that way. A cold shiver runs down your spine. A quirky tidbit flashes into your mind. Medieval Icelanders sometimes left their honored dead within longhouses temporarily, especially in winter storms, until the ground thawed enough for burial. Bodies wrapped, placed near warmth to slow freezing, watched over until the earth was ready to accept them. Your mouth goes dry. "Please just be sleeping," you whisper, though everything in your gut tells you otherwise. You lean closer. Then the figure's eyes snap open. You stumble backward so fast you nearly fall onto a bench. Your heart tries its best to exit through your throat. The figure sits up slowly, joints stiff, blinking at you with the sluggish confusion of someone waking from a fever.
Their voice cracks, rough and weak. Who are you? You swallow hard. Lost. The person's expression softens, not with trust, but with recognition. They shift upright, wincing slightly, as if their whole body aches. You came through the fog, they say quietly. You nod. They glance toward the doorway, eyes narrowing. Then it lets you through. It doesn't do that for everyone. Your pulse spikes. What does that mean? The person breathes deeply, shakily, as though weighing the truth in their mouth before letting it out. The fog, it keeps what it takes. You stare at them. They stare back. And the fire crackles between you like it's holding the only light in a world full of shadows waiting outside.
The figure sits fully upright now, the firelight catching the hollows beneath their eyes. They look like someone carved from exhaustion, pale skin stretched thin, dark circles etched deeply enough to hold stories you're not sure you want to hear. Their wool cloak hangs loosely from their shoulders, stiff with damp, and the smell of smoke clings to them like a second garment. You clear your throat gently. How long have you been here? The person glances toward the rafters, as if counting seasons stored in the smoke-stained beams. Then their gaze returns to you. Long enough to learn its moods, they whisper. Long enough to know what you've already felt. You swallow. The fog? A slow nod. It breathes, it shifts, it hunts, and sometimes it gives back. Your pulse stutters. You're not sure you want to know what that means. But here you are, in a half-forgotten longhouse, with someone who looks part survivor, part warning. You pull your cloak tighter. The fire's glow is weak, barely more than an ember bed, but the warmth is enough to thaw your fingers. You sit carefully on a nearby platform, your boots crunching over dry rushes. The person watches you with the wary curiosity of someone who hasn't seen another face in far too long. A mainstream historical fact surfaces to steady your nerves. During harsh winters, Icelandic farmers could be isolated for weeks or months at a time. Some families lived so remotely that a single yearly gathering at a regional assembly was their only contact with others. Solitude wasn't strange. Prolonged silence wasn't unusual. But this is different. This is a person living alone by the sea, in a longhouse with no livestock sounds, no weaving loom creaking in the corner, no kettle steaming over the hearth. No signs of daily life, except survival. You shift, feeling the weight of their stare. Were you waiting for someone? Their lips tighten. A flicker of pain crosses their face, so raw it's almost embarrassing to witness. They look away, toward the far wall where shadows cling like memories. There were 3 of us, fishermen. A pause. Storm came in, fog worse than any we'd seen. You lean forward, heart tightening. We thought we could outrow it, but you don't outrow that kind of fog. A quirky tidbit drifts in. There are medieval Icelandic accounts describing blinding mists so thick they swallowed whole crews. Fishermen rowed in circles, unable to see their own boats' sterns. Some believed sea spirits wove the fog. Others blamed trolls grinding mountains into powder. Whether those tales were fear-layered metaphors or something more literal, historians still argue. The person continues, voice cracking. We were separated. The sea does that. Takes one man left, another right, another straight ahead. Their fingers grip the edge of the platform until knuckles blanch. Your breath catches. How long ago? You ask softly. Their eyes dull. I stopped counting. A length of silence follows, deep, heavy, broken only by the faint pop of a dying coal. Outside, the wind brushes against the turf walls as though searching for ways in. The longhouse feels smaller suddenly, like it's closing around the two of you. You shift closer to the fire. The figure watches the flame with a distant look. The fog doesn't just hide, it listens, it chooses. If you row the wrong way, it leads you deeper. If you row the right way, it lets you believe you're leaving. You try to laugh lightly, humor for sanity's sake. Perfect. Love that. Very comforting. They blink, slowly, almost sympathetically. It's not meant to comfort. Your skin prickles. Then how do you get out? You ask. They fix their gaze on you in a way that makes you feel suddenly uncomfortably seen. You already know. It takes a moment for their meaning to pierce the fog in your mind. Row when it breathes in, rest when it breathes out. You exhale shakily. So the old man wasn't metaphorical? The person tilts their head. What old man? You freeze. Everything in the room stills. Your breath, the fire's crackle, even the wind outside seems to pause. There was a man in the cave, you say slowly, an old man with a staff. He told me how to move through the fog. The person stares at you, each second growing heavier. There is no one living in those caves, they say flatly. Not for years, not since. They stop. You lean in. Since what? But they shake their head sharply. The fog gives and the fog takes. Don't ask it for more. But chill threads down your spine. They lift a trembling hand toward the fire, warming their fingers. You survived because it let you, but it's not finished with you yet. You open your mouth to ask what that means, but then you hear it. A soft, distant thud against the outside wall. Both of you freeze. Another thud, heavier, closer. You turn slowly toward the door. The figure's voice drops to a whisper. It followed you. Your heart slams into your ribs. Don't open the door, they breathe. Not until the fog decides whether you belong here. The thud against the wall is soft. Too soft to be anything dramatic. Too quiet to be a threat you can name. And that's exactly why it terrifies you. Loud dangers are easy. Loud dangers tell you what they are. Quiet dangers make you guess, and guessing is the enemy of sleep and sanity. You and the stranger sit frozen, muscles coiled like springs that have seen better days. The longhouse walls, thick turf layered over rib-like beams, muffle the outside world. But something is out there, moving, testing, learning the edges of the house. You whisper, "What is that?" The figure shakes their head once, a tiny movement, the kind that says,
I know, but I'm not saying, and also, even saying it might make it real. Then comes another thud, this one higher, near the roofline. A hush falls over the room so complete you can hear your pulse in your ears, a frantic drum begging your brain to reconsider its life choices. The figure exhales slowly. It knows you're here. Fantastic! Love that for us. You brace your hands against the wooden bench, trying to ground yourself. The hearth gives a weak pop, sending a soft spray of sparks upward. They drift lazily, then vanish in the cold air. The fire is fading, and the stranger notices too. They reach for a small sack beside them and toss a handful of dried moss under the coals. It flares briefly, casting both of your faces in warm orange. Outside, the wind shifts. The stranger lifts a finger to his lips, silent warning. You listen. The fog presses against the longhouse like a living thing, moving in slow, heavy drags over the roof. You swear you can hear it, soft, wet, whispering, as if it's breathing again, exhaling against the turf, waiting for you to take the wrong step. The stranger whispers, "Don't move unless it listens. Don't breathe too loudly. It hates that." "Good to know," you mutter, your voice barely audible. "Really helpful." A mainstream historical fact emerges from the back of your mind. Fear does strange things to memory. Icelandic folklore is full of wandering spirits, sea wraiths, mistwalkers, creatures that inhabit the edges of human sight. Medieval people blamed them for disappearances, for shipwrecks, for storms, for livestock vanishing. They believed fog was their camouflage, their hunting ground. And historians still argue whether those stories were simple superstition or warnings built from generations of lost sailors. Another thud, this time against the door. You nearly jump out of your skin. The stranger reaches for your arm, gripping your sleeve tightly. Their fingers are icy. "Don't go to it." "Why would I? I'm not..." "No one is going to the door." The stranger nods, still holding your arm as if to prevent you from bolting anyway. They look toward the far corner of the longhouse, where the shadows feel thicker, layered, intentional. The dog that had been asleep beside the hearth suddenly lifts its head, ears pricking. It's the first sign of normality you've seen since entering the longhouse, and the fact that the dog looks more alert than frightened gives you a sliver of courage. One, very tiny. You swallow hard. What does it want? The stranger exhales shakily. It wants to know if you're worth leading back. Leading back where? To the shore or to the sea? It decides. You stare. You're telling me the fog evaluates people? Their gaze drifts to the door. Everything alive evaluates. You would love to argue with that point. You would love to present a thorough list of counterexamples, starting with barnacles and moving into fungi. But a new sound interrupts your thoughts. Dragging. A long, slow drag across the outer wall. Like wet cloth, or seaweed, or fingers. You and the stranger tense simultaneously. The dog stands now, hackles raised, eyes fixed on the door. A quirky tidbit surfaces. Dogs in Icelandic sagas were often described as having a second sight, sensing spirits or natural dangers before humans did. Whether this was poetic embellishment or a reflection of real canine intuition is something scholars still debate. But in this moment, you choose to believe it fully, because the dog's reaction is the opposite of comforting. The stranger releases your sleeve and stands shakily, walking toward the hearth. Not toward the door, thank every deity Iceland has ever invented, but close enough to cast their shadow large against the wall. They lift a small iron poker with trembling hands. You whisper loudly, "What are you doing?" They reply softly, "Listening." Another drag along the wall. Then a tap, gentle, almost questioning. Your skin crawls. You whisper, "Please tell me that's just, I don't know, driftwood?" The stranger shakes her head. Driftwood doesn't knock. "Oh, good," you say, voice cracking. "Wonderful. Excellent distinction." The flame flickers weakly, struggling to survive. The stranger blows lightly on the coals. The fire stirs, lighting her face from below in a way that would be humorous if everything weren't terrifying. You brace yourself for another knock. But instead, the fog does something worse.
It speaks. Not words, not language. A sound. A low moan, long, hollow, rising and falling like a whale's call, filtered through stone. The walls tremble faintly, the rafters creak. The dog backs away, whimpering, tail tucked. Even the embers seem to dim in response. Your breath stops completely. The stranger closes their eyes. It's searching. For what? For the ones it lost. Your heart nearly stops. The stranger opens their eyes, meeting yours with the expression of someone who has already lost too much. You enter the fog, leave behind echoes. Footsteps, breath, something the mist remembers even after the body is gone. You stare at them. Are you saying it thinks I'm one of them? No. A pause. It's deciding if you should join them. Before you can respond, something slams into the door so hard the hinges rattle. You jump to your feet. The stranger grabs your wrist. Don't run. Don't shout. Don't breathe like prey. I'll try. They pull you close, voice barely audible. Listen to me. When the fog calls, you don't answer with fear. You answer with direction. You gape. Direction? Tell it where you're going, they whisper urgently. Tell it that you choose the shore, not the sea. The door shakes again. Once, twice, then holds. Your pulse races. You swallow hard and force the words out through trembling lips. I choose the shore. The wind stops. The dragging stops. Even the fire seems to freeze. Silence falls, thick and absolute. Then slowly, like a sigh from an ancient world, the fog exhales. Long, soft, releasing. And you understand. It's letting you live. For now.
The silence after the fog's exhale is so complete it feels unnatural, like the world is holding its breath, waiting to see what you'll do next. The stranger still grips your wrist, knuckles white, eyes locked on the trembling door. You can feel their pulse through their fingers, fast, frantic, mirroring your own. Finally, they release you. The long house settles back into itself. The rafters stop quivering. The embers regain their gentle crackle. Even the dog, after a long moment of indecision,
creeps back toward the hearth and curls up again, tail still tucked, body taut. You exhale hard, your lungs shaking with the effort. So you whisper, trying and failing to sound casual. Is this normal for you? The stranger huffs out a sound that might be a laugh or a sob, something brittle. Nothing about this place is normal. You learn to live with what won't leave you alone. You rub your arms briskly, trying to fight off the cold creeping through your sleeves. Does it do that often? The knocking, the moaning, the whole choosing your destiny thing? The stranger lowers themselves back onto the wooden platform, eyes distant. Sometimes it knocks for days. Sometimes it circles the house like it's sniffing. Sometimes it waits at the water's edge and watches. You flinch. Watches. Another nod. It stays where the sea meets the stones. It knows most people don't dare look back at it. You wish deeply that they hadn't said that. You don't want to imagine fog with a face, or with intentions. Your eyes drift to the door. It looks ordinary now, just wood and turf and iron nails. But you can still feel the echo of the force that hit it. Your skin remembers the vibration. Your bones remember the sound. The stranger shifts, tugging a wool blanket around their shoulders. Their voice softens. But you're different. You look up sharply. Different how? Because I'm lost? Because I row like a terrified seal? Their lips twitch, the faintest amusement. Because it followed you. The amusement fades. Fog doesn't follow everyone. Only those the sea hasn't decided on yet. Fantastic. Love that for you. Really stabilizing for the mental health. Your hands shake a little as you warm them over the fire. What does that even mean? The sea hasn't decided. You pause. Is this a metaphor, or should I be worrying about existential drowning? The stranger closes their eyes, weary. In the sagas, the sea tests people. It gives storms to the brave, silence to the clever, and fog to the uncertain. The fog is a mirror. It shows what you fear most. It tests whether you bend or break. You swallow slowly. I didn't see anything in the fog. Their eyes flicker up again, sharp, searching. Didn't you? Your mind flickers, dark shapes in the mist, the figure on the water, the ripple under your boat, the broken plank drifting like a warning. Those were real, you say quickly. Probably. Mostly. The stranger's gaze doesn't waver. The fog knows the difference better than we do. You stare into the fire, unwilling to unpack that sentence. A mainstream historical fact cuts through the tension. Stories from medieval Iceland often described fog not as weather, but as an adversary. Farmers feared it. Fishermen respected it. Some even claimed fog carried voices, warnings from drowned sailors or spirits trapped between worlds. And historians still argue whether these tales were metaphorical descriptions of fear or literal beliefs rooted in experience. You glance back at the stranger. Why haven't you left? Why stay in this? You gesture vaguely to the longhouse, which smells strongly of smoke, seawater, loneliness, and existential crisis. Their expression hardens, not with anger, but with something heavier. I tried. You wait. They take a breath that sounds like it weighs more than the blanket around their shoulders. After the fog took my crewmates, I thought I could row home. I followed the currents, listened to the wind, waited for signals. But every time I left this shore, it brought me back. You blink, like your oars turned the boat around? No. Their voice drops to a whisper. The sea did. Your heart stutters unevenly. They continue. You row for hours, and the coastline shifts. Land is behind you, then beside you, then gone. And when exhaustion wins, the fog lifts, and you're back here, at this same longhouse, as if nothing changed. They clutch the blanket tighter. It wants something. It waits. You shiver. For what? Their gaze meets yours, dark, steady. For someone, it can release. You freeze. Me? They exhale. Maybe. You don't know whether to feel honored or horrified. The dog whines softly, looking toward the door again. A faint tap echoes, gentle this time, like a fingertip brushing wood. You and the stranger both stare. It's still there, you whisper. It will be until dawn, they reply. Your stomach twists. Dawn, that's hours. They nod once. Longhouse nights are long. You slump back against the wall. I can't just sit here and be evaluated. The stranger stands slowly, wobbling slightly, but steadying themselves with the wall. They step toward you, face lit only by the trembling glow of the embers. You're not waiting, they say softly. You're preparing. For what? They turn their head toward the door. For the fog to ask again. Your voice cracks, and what if I answer wrong? Their eyes settle on you with a weight that roots you in place. Then the sea takes you. A long silence settles between you. Then the stranger adds, almost in a whisper, but if you answer right, it lets you go home. Your heart pounds like thunder trapped in your chest. You lean closer to the fire, trying to absorb every last ember of warmth. And outside, the fog drags its fingers along the turf again. Slow, searching, waiting.
You don't sleep. Not really. You drift in that strange, fragile half-state where your body slumps and your eyes blink slowly, but your brain sits upright like a paranoid guard dog, listening for anything resembling a knock, a scrape, a whisper, or, gods forbid, the sound of fog breathing. You're not alone. The stranger sits beside the hearth with their knees drawn up, wrapped in their blanket like a lonely winter hill. The dog lies half across your feet, trembling every now and then in its dreams. Even the beams overhead seem tense, as if the long house itself is holding in a breath. The fire pops, sending a spark upward. The stranger flinches, then mutters something under their breath. You can't tell if it's a prayer or a complaint. You rub your eyes. So, what exactly happens at dawn? You whisper. The stranger shrugs without looking at you. If the fog wants you, it stays. If it doesn't, it burns away like breath on a mirror. Comforting. They tilt their head. I didn't say which one is comforting. Great. Really putting the sleep story energy into this one tonight. A draft snakes across the floor again, curling around your boots. It carries the familiar scent of cold ocean, salt, deep water, something faintly metallic. You try not to imagine the fog sticking its fingers under the door to check whether you're still inside. You shift on your fur-lined bench. Do you really believe the fog decides people's fate? The stranger doesn't hesitate. Yes, that was quick. It's the only explanation that makes sense. Their voice is tired but certain. Storms you can hear coming, winds you can read, currents you can trust. But the fog? They shake their head. The fog chooses. A mainstream historical fact surfaces. Medieval Icelanders often treated fog like a living force, something with intent, not just weather. Fishermen avoided certain coves entirely during misty mornings. Farmers claimed fog swallowed paths whole. Sailors called it the white silence, a place where the world folded in on itself. Historians still argue whether these beliefs sprang from superstition or the simple fact that fog genuinely killed people with terrifying regularity. The stranger's voice softens. Fog doesn't blind you, it isolates you, makes everything feel too near or too far, makes you doubt what's real. I swallow. You talk like it's already inside my head. They look at you finally, and the fatigue in their face makes your chest tighten. It is. Before you can argue, something changes. The dog's ears snap up. The hairs on your arms rise. The air in the longhouse tightens, colder and heavier. Then, a faint scrape skims along the outer wall. You freeze, breath snagged in your throat like a caught thread. The stranger tenses, grip tightening on their blanket. Don't look at it, no matter what it sounds like. Why not? They don't answer, which is absolutely not reassuring. A second scrape follows, slow, deliberate, like something dragging across turf and timber. The sound moves around the longhouse, steady as footsteps, but too fluid, too soft to belong to anything with legs. You shift on your fur-lined bench. Is it circling? The stranger's eyes flick to the rafters, then the far wall, then back to the door. Yes. You grip the bench, knuckles white. It's looking for a way in. Fog doesn't need doors. Their whisper is sharp. It already followed you once. Your chest tightens painfully. Okay, that feels like an accusation. I'm not accusing. I'm warning you. The scrape stops. Silence blooms, dense and absolute. The stranger squeezes their eyes shut. Don't breathe loud. You try. You really do. But your lungs apparently missed the memo because they decide this is the perfect time to misbehave and take the loudest inhale of your life. Immediately. Tap, tap, tap on the door. The same slow rhythm as before, as if something outside is rapping with a single outstretched knuckle. Tap, tap, tap. Each one lands deeper in your spine. The dog presses itself into your side, trembling so hard its claws click on the floor. The stranger lowers their head. It's asking again. Asking what? Your voice cracks like thin ice. They open their eyes, glassy, frightened. Whether you've decided. I haven't even been told the question. The knocking stops. A moment passes,
cold and hollow. Then beneath the door light begins to spill inward. Not warm firelight, not moonlight, but a pale, unnatural glow. It pulses once, twice, like a heartbeat. Your voice shrinks. Is that normal? Nothing about this is normal, but the glow means it wants an answer. To what? To whether you'll go with it. Your body goes rigid. The stranger continues, quietly, miserably. I told you, some people the fog releases, a long shaking breath. Others it takes. Your throat tightens. Why me? The stranger looks at you with something approaching pity. Because it followed you all the way from the water. Outside, the glow intensifies, soft pulses beating like the breath of something waiting with infinite patience. You edge closer to the fire, desperation rising. What do I do? The stranger's answer is barely audible over the blood rushing in your ears. You wait, and when the fog speaks, you don't lie to it. You stare at the door. The glow grows brighter. The humming starts, soft, low, ancient, and then a voice. Not quite human, not quite wind, something in between. It whispers your name. You jerk upright, heart punching your ribs. It knows my name? The stranger closes his eyes. It always does. Your breath shakes, your limbs shake, your thoughts shake. And the fog whispers again. Not your name this time. Something worse. A question. A question only you can hear. A question only you can answer. A question that makes your blood turn cold. Why did you run from the sea?
You don't answer. You can't. Your tongue has turned into some kind of useless medieval leather strap, heavy and uncooperative. The stranger opens one eye, watching you like someone who already knows exactly how people look right before they answer the fog wrong. The voice outside repeats the question, gentle, coaxing, almost kind. Why did you run from the sea? The hearth crackles behind you, but even the fire feels smaller now, like it's trying very hard to pretend it isn't hearing this conversation. The dog wedges itself halfway under the wooden bench, whimpering softly. Your lungs finally decide to function again. I didn't run, you whisper, even though it sounds like a lie even to your own ears. The stranger shakes her head fast. Don't deny it. Her whisper slices the air. The fog hates denial. I didn't run, you repeat, a little louder, because sometimes repeating something makes it more true, right? The glow beneath the door dims, then strengthens, like a sigh. The voice comes again, soft, almost disappointed. Then why did you leave the water behind you? Your pulse jumps, because that question isn't about navigation or rowing or getting lost. It's about the moment you pushed your boat toward shore, heart pounding, convinced something was moving under the water, something big enough to rock the hull. It's asking about the shadow you saw flicker beneath the surface before the fog swallowed everything. You swallow, mouth dry as driftwood. I thought I saw something. The stranger inhales sharply. Good, don't hide it. You brace yourself. I thought maybe it was a seal. Outside, the fog whispers a sound that might be laughter or waves. The voice answers. There were no seals.
A shiver spiders up your spine. The stranger whispers, "Tell it what you felt, not what you saw." You grip your knees. "Okay, fine. I panicked. Something touched the boat. I don't know what it was. I didn't stay to investigate." The glow softens, its rhythm slowing. Steady. Listening. You continue, because suddenly stopping feels like a very bad idea. "I ran because I felt like the sea wanted me to go further out." Your throat tightens. Too far out. The longhouse falls silent. The stranger stares at you like you've just confessed something he's heard from other fishermen who didn't make it home. A tiny voice inside your head tries to make a joke, something like, "Wow, way to open up tonight." But it dies immediately because the fog speaks again. You ran from the sea because you feared the deep. The words hit you like cold surf. You try to breathe. "Yes," you whisper. The stranger nods urgently. "Good, keep going." You squeeze your eyes shut. The black under the water, the silence. It felt wrong. I couldn't shake the feeling something was moving under me. Your breath shakes. "I left because I thought if I stayed, I'd disappear." The glow dims. For a moment, just one, you feel a tiny hope spark inside your chest. But then the fog's voice returns, colder now, closer to human, but not close enough. You fear the deep. A pause, a hum, a chilling sort of curiosity. But the deep does not fear you. Your throat closes. That doesn't help at all. The stranger squeezes their eyes shut. It's deciding, keep calm. How am I supposed to keep calm? Your whisper jumps into an accidental stage whisper, and even the fire crackles like it's telling you to lower your voice. The dog lets out a tiny sneeze of distress. And then, the voice outside changes. It becomes quieter, more distant, like something receding into mist. You ran from the sea. The glow begins to fade. But now you run towards something else. You blink. What? I'm not running toward anything. The stranger tenses. Don't argue, not now. You swallow. What am I running toward? The fog hums, like it's thinking in a language older than words. Then, shelter. Your breath stops. Warmth. The stranger bows her head. The glow dims further. A place that remembers you. Your heart thumps painfully. What does that even mean? A longhouse, you whisper? A home, the stranger offers softly. The fog does not correct either of you, which is somehow worse. Then the voice speaks one last time. You ran from the sea, and the sea has let you go. The glow vanishes. The humming stops. The silence returns, cold, hollow, enormous. The stranger slowly raises their head. It released you. You exhale shakily, the relief crashing through you in a wave so strong your legs almost give out. Is that good? You whisper. The stranger hesitates. You do not like that hesitation. Finally, they answer. It's good for tonight. You blink. Tonight? They nod grimly. Fog isn't done with you. Not yet. Your stomach drops. You slump back onto the furs, trying not to spiral. So it's like a best of 3 series? The stranger doesn't laugh. The fire pops gently. Somewhere in the dark, the fog pulls away from the longhouse, leaving only stillness, and the faint, undeniable feeling that you just had a conversation you were never meant to survive.
You don't fall asleep, not exactly. Your body tries, sure, sinking into the warmth of the longhouse like wet wool collapsing into a basket. But your mind is doing cartwheels like a stressed-out Viking acrobat. Every time your eyelids droop, your brain whispers, the fog wasn't done with you. Which is not the lullaby you wanted tonight. Still, Exhaustion eventually wins a small victory. Your shoulders drop, your heartbeat calms, your fingers unclench from the furs. You stare into the low orange glow of the hearth, watching the light pulse like something breathing, alive, steady, impossible to rush. The stranger sits across from you, arms folded, staring toward the door as if expecting the fog to knock politely again. You clear your throat. So the sea released me. He doesn't move. Tonight. You wait for more details. There are none. Okay, so if I want this whole fog situation to end, what do I do? He finally looks at you. You listen. I am listening. No. He points a finger toward your chest. You listen in the way the sea demands. Ah, yes, the helpful clarity of medieval cryptic wisdom. Perfect. You sigh. Right, of course. Listening, naturally. Love that. But just hypothetically, what does that mean in normal human sentences? Before he can answer, an older woman across the room opens one eye. You didn't even realize she was awake. It means you notice what the sea told you. You stare. It told me I'm scared of the deep and it doesn't care about me. She shakes her head. That was not what it said. The stranger nods grimly. It said the sea has let you go. Your stomach tenses. And that's good? The old woman snorts. The sea only releases those it considers unfinished. I hate that. I hate everything about that. Unfinished what? You ask, voice squeaking slightly. She shrugs. Unfinished story, unfinished map, unfinished courage. You decide. This is not comforting. This is anti-comfort. You rub your eyes. So to get the fog to stop haunting me, I just finish something? That's all? The stranger gives a long, slow inhale and doesn't answer. A sheep bleats loudly from the byre, as if to say, absolutely not, sweetie. You sigh. Of course not. The old woman lifts a finger. Fog calls to those who run from what lives beneath their fear. That's extremely vague. That's how you know it's important. You take a long, exhausted breath. Something thumps outside. Everyone freezes. Another thump, slow and heavy, like something large shifting its weight just beyond the longhouse wall. You whisper, "Fog again?" The stranger shakes his head. No, fog doesn't walk. Wonderful. Perfect. Excellent. Great. The old woman sits up just enough to glare at the doorway. It's only the drift ice shifting. The earth makes noises in winter. You wait. 1 second. 2 seconds. No more thumps. Your lungs finally remember how to function. So, what does the fog want next? The stranger leans forward, elbows on knees. The firelight paints sharp shadows across his face. It wants you to name what followed you in the water. Your blood runs cold. You hate that question. You hate how it lands in your chest, heavy, true. You whisper, "I don't know what it was." "You do," he says softly. "I really don't." "You felt it," the old woman corrects. "Feeling is older than knowing." You swallow hard. Images flicker in your memory. The black beneath the boat, the sudden tilt, the weightless silence, something like presence. Not a shape, not a creature, a
pressure, like being watched by something enormous and patient. You whisper, "I thought it was just panic." "It wasn't," the stranger says. The dog whimpers again, curling tighter against your leg. "What if I name it, it makes it real?" The stranger nods. "That's the point. I hate this quest line so much, but something in you shifts, a small, steady bravery born not from confidence but from pure exhaustion. You lean closer to the fire. You watch a coal collapse into ash. You whisper, "I think I felt the sea thinking." The room goes so quiet, even the sheep stop breathing. The old woman nods once, slowly. "Yes, you felt the deep mind." Your throat tightens. "Is that bad?" She considers. "It is ancient. It is curious. It also does not forget. This is somehow worse than bad." The fire crackles gently, the only small softness in the room. The stranger exhales. "You're marked now." You freeze. "Marked by what?" He raises a hand. "Not like a curse, not like doom. The sea has simply noticed you." This is not helping. The old woman adds, "When the fog returns, it will not be asking questions. It will be waiting for your answer." Your heart drops somewhere near your boots. "What answer? I don't even know the question." She gives a thin smile. "You will." You look between them, panic rising like tidewater. The dog presses its nose to your knee, steady, warm, grounding. You inhale slowly, then release it, controlled, quiet. "Can I survive this?" The stranger studies you for a long moment. Finally, he nods once. "Yes, if you stop running." You let that settle. Heavy, true, unavoidable. Outside, far off in the night, the fog moves across the land like something alive and listening. You sit by the fire, warmth gently breathing against your skin. And somewhere deep beneath the Icelandic sea, the deep mind waits.
Let the edges of the longhouse blur a little. The fire's glow stretching into a gentle haze that warms the space behind your eyes. The cold outside becomes something distant and harmless, like a forgotten thought. You breathe in slowly, and the air tastes faintly of smoke, wool, and safety. The longhouse settles into its nighttime rhythm, quiet, steady, almost like a giant creature curling around its own heartbeat. The animals shift softly, the sheep settling into warm circles of breath and fleece. The dog rests its head beside you, its warmth anchoring you even as your mind drifts. You feel the steady pulse of the hearth, a slow orange comfort threading through your chest. Each crackle becomes softer, stretching into a long, relaxing exhale from the room itself. The walls, the beams, the furs beneath you, they all feel calm, patient, older than worry. And as your thoughts drift, the fog becomes something far away, not a threat now, just a pale memory smoothing itself into the background. What matters is the warmth, the breath, the steady rhythm of a shelter that has held countless winters. Let your muscles soften. Let your shoulders fall. Let the quiet settle comfortably over you like a wool blanket pulled a little higher. You are safe here. You are warm. You are held gently by a place that asks nothing of you but rest. Breathe in the glow. Breathe out the last of the cold, and let the night carry you slowly, quietly, towards sleep.